हम जो मदहे शहदी जाह रकम करते हैं, शाखे तूबा पे तहरीर कलम करते हैं, हम जो मदहे।
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello children. I hope you're all doing well and availing every minute of this auspicious month of Shahrullah. Today, I feel extremely ecstatic to get connected with you all to discuss and talk about the essence of literature. Yes, actually I call it the essence of literature, and that is poetry. So let's discuss what is a poetry. A poem is a piece of writing in which the expression of feelings and ideas is given intensity by particular attention to the words. Sometimes it involves rhyme and sometimes it's imagery. Let me elaborate a little. What it actually means is that when you are writing a poem, you're focusing more on the power of words. Your words have the power to capture the attention of the reader. And so, sometimes there's an involvement of the rhyming words. You might have read a lot of poem which has rhyme. Let's take an example of a poem by Robert Louis Stevenson, From a Railway Carriage. Faster than fairies, faster than witches, bridges and houses, hedges and ditches, and charging along like troops in a battle, all through the meadows, the horses and cattle, all of the sides of the hill and the plain, fly as thick as driving rain, and ever again in the wink of an eye, painted stations whistle by. So here you might have noticed the rhyming words. For example, witches, ditches, battle, cattle, plain, rain, eye, by. So like I said, some of the poems have rhyming words like these, while on the other hand, some poems are imagery. Imagery means the use of the figurative language, while on the other hand, some of the poems are imagery. For example, they use more of the figurative language, which includes simile, metaphors, personification, and so on. Now further, let's talk about the elements of a poetry. Literature is a vast field, and poem is the compact form of literature. It actually packs all kinds of ideas, feelings, sounds into a few carefully selected and appropriate chosen words by you. So let's say if you are writing a poem, it's your idea, it's your expression, it's your feelings, and therefore they are your words which expresses it in a beautiful way. Robert Frost has rightly said that poetry is when an emotion has found its thought, and the thought has found the words. So now further, let's talk about the tools of the poetry, the essential tools. So, the first one, the theme. The theme is your actual message, whatever the idea of your poem is. The next is the rhythm. The rhythm is the feel of the poem. Like I just gave you an example of the railway carriage, and each line ending with a rhyming word. So that's the rhythm. the lyrical mood of the poem. Thirdly, meter. Meter is a number and style of accented syllables of a line. Again comes rhyme. Now, rhythm is basically the tune of the poem, which, yes, of course, is not necessary if you're writing a poem. However, rhyme is the words that have the same ending sound. The next is stanza. Stanza is a group of lines in a poem. Now, your stanza could be of 4 lines, could be of 5 lines, could be of 6. That's completely up to you. Last but not the least, mood. Mood is the feeling of the poet, which describes the essence of the poetry. For example, it could be a mournful poem, so definitely the mood of the poet should be sad, so automatically the words come out in that flow. If you're ecstatic, if you're happy, then the mood of the poet is blissful, and it naturally comes out that way. Moving on, when we talk about poetry, trust me, it's not that simple, because poetries have various forms. Let me just show you 15 types of poetic forms, as you can see on the screen. So all these different forms have different styles of writing. And all these different forms have different strategies of writing. But for now, let's focus on the formal and free verse poetry to make it easy for you all to begin writing a poem. But for now, let's focus on formal and free verse poetry so that you exactly know that you have these 2 options and you have to work on any one. Sounds simple, isn't it? There are a number of ways that poets can use stanzas to tell a story. But the 2 broad approaches are formal verse and free verse. Formal verse is a poetry that follows a strict repeating pattern like sonnets or limericks. Now let me tell you that sonnet is a 14-line poem, typically concerning on the topic of love. However, if you talk about limericks, it's a 5-line poem. So you see there are strict pattern of these particular poems. Stanzas in formal verse will have a matching meter and a rhyme scheme, a strict rhyme scheme. However, in the free verse, poetry does not follow a strict rhyme or meter. Stanzas could be of different types, and it can be used within your one poem that you have written. So that means a free verse poem has a wider exposure. Yes, formal also of course has a wider exposure because that's also your feelings, your ideas, but you will have to follow a strict meter and a rhyme scheme for that. Now let me just share a very comical kind of a picture with you, which is, you'll see these 2 people talking with each other. "Let's talk in rhyme all day," says the man. However, the lady says, "You know I hate to talk that way." So you see, poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. So to make your poetries more compelling and effective, I am going to share some wonderful writing tips with you, which will definitely make your poetry appealing to your readers. So let's begin. Read a lot of poetry. I know that's quite difficult to do, but trust me, if you read a lot of poetries, you'd be able to write in a much better way. You can do this in a casual way by letting the words of your favorite poems wash over you without necessarily digging for deeper meaning. Just read for the love of reading. Number 2. Listen to live poetry recitations. Trust me, there are wonderful poetries available on YouTube which you can just listen to. The experience of consuming poetry does not have to be an academic exercise, but just do it for yourself. Just enjoy, and that's it. Third, start small. Yes, I'm not asking you to write a big poetry, or I don't want you to be overwhelmed with the power of the words. But start by writing a simple rhyming poem. That's it, and that's all. Number 4. Don't obsess over your first line, because this is what usually happens. If you don't feel you have exactly the right words to open your poem, don't give up there. Keep writing and come back to the first line when you're ready. So that's completely okay. Number 5. Embrace tools. Yes. So if you have a thesaurus or a dictionary, then make it your best friend when you're writing a poem, because that is going to be the most effective tool for you to write in a much better way. The 6th point. Enhance the poetic form with literary devices. Remember we discussed about formal writing the formal verse? So yes, you can use literary devices in both the formal as well as the free verse, because that kind of adds a spice in your poetry. The 7th one. Try telling a story with your poem. Many of the ideas you might express in a novel, a short story, or an essay, or a creative writing that you do. But here in the poem, you can also write your story in a form of a stanza. The 8th one. Paint with words. Wow, this is itself like a poetic language, isn't it? When a poet paints with words, they use word choice to figuratively paint concrete images in a reader's mind. For example, whatever you are writing should actually be visualized by the reader who's reading your wonderful diction, your wonderful words. Lastly, familiarize yourself with myriad forms of poetry, which means each different form of poetry has its own requirements, right? There are rhyme schemes, there are number of lines, there's a subject matter, there is a meter that is followed. So, every poetry has its own requirements. So decide what do you want your poem to be like, and then start writing accordingly. So now, after discussing these wonderful tips with you all, let's begin writing. Yes! So it's time for you all to pick up your pen and bleed straight away from your heart. Let every diction drip from your heart in the most effective manner. So are you all ready to do that? Okay, I can hear a soft yes from you all. So the first point, before writing, you all know, right? Our objective to write today is for our beloved Mawla Tabbalallahu Umru Sharif, whose birthday is on the 23rd of Shahrul Muazzam. So before writing, just keep the divine picture of Mawla Tabbalallahu Sharif in your mind. Or pick up a picture and look at it very carefully for about 2 to 3 minutes. Secondly, just close your eyes and imagine a moment when you were delighted with Maula Tawallam Sharif's Didar, Qadam Bosi or Salam. Cherish that moment again. Just close your eyes. Thirdly, after doing these two very important things, it's time to construct a mind map and write down all that you just felt. Like I said earlier, let your words drip from your heart. And I'm sure you have a lot to pen down. Fourth, after constructing a constructive mind map, make a list of rhyming words to ease up your poem writing. And last, it's time to decide whether you want to write a free verse or a formal verse. So by now, I'm sure you have decided that whether your poetry is going to be a formal verse or a free verse. So let me just give you a very brief information on how to write a formal verse. So these are the two things that you have to keep in mind: affixes of meter, rhyme and form. And the characteristics of writing a free verse are repetition, alliteration, patterns of stressed and unstressed syllables, occasional internal rhyme, occasional rhymes at the end of lines, patterns of assonance, and imagery. Now here I would like to share this beautiful quote by Dana Kyoe. Poetry speaks most effectively and inclusively, whether in free or formal verse, when it recognizes its connection, without apology, to its musical and ritualistic origins. So again, children, if you are writing a free verse or a formal verse, it doesn't matter at all. It's just the connection that you really have to build. Let me share some wonderful poetries written by the poets of Safia Boys High School. And yes, you can see all these poetries on the school's website on the Children's Corner. Alright, so you will be able to access the link underneath this video in the description box. Just click on the link to get an access in the Children's Corner to get this extraordinary resource. Now here I've taken a lot of poetries, but let me just give you an example of one so that you'll get a rough idea of how it could be done. For example, this poetry written by Luwai. Mu'mineen hearts are filled with bliss as the Milad arrives of His Holiness. Each one will celebrate and the chants of Maula Mubarak will reverberate. So here what you need to notice are the rhyming words that is at the end of each line. Bliss, holiness, celebrate, reverberate. And that is followed by the rest of the poem with altogether 4 stanzas. Moving on, you are going to see all these poems on the Children's Corner, like I said, and there you will be able to read and get to know which scheme they have actually followed. And there you will actually get to know that whether they have written a free verse or it's a formal verse. And let me add here, children, that all these poetries that you see is not a one-day task. So let me tell you that you'll need ample of time to sit, think, and then express your ideas. Like if you observe, these children who have written the poem, they have worked immensely hard they actually followed all the strategies, all the tools, and all the tips of effective writing that I've already shared with you. So make sure you follow the same pattern to produce these wonderful and magnificent poetries. All the very best to all of you, and I'm sure the rich poet inside you will bring out lavish words flowing creatively and innovatively from you. So good luck. Aha, wait a minute please. The right man in the right place at the right time can steal millions. So begin now. Yes, now is the time to wish Maula Tawallam Sharif with the flowing stream of your splendid words. So you have 5 days to shot the 6. Good luck. Lastly, let's pray that may Allah grant our beloved Maula, Sayyidina Mufaddal Saifuddin, a long, healthy and a prosperous life till the day of Qiyamah. Ameen.